Eric's in party mode over there, man. He's just rocking the tunes, thinking we're on like dance radio. Maybe we are. I've seen people dance in here. Jande Hodges is back with us, who we have not heard from in a little while, but she's been on an incredible roller coaster all over the country. But lucky for us, she is back. Now, Jane has appeared in many well-known publications, such as the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, AOL Housing Watch, Fortune, the Seattle Times, and Seattle Magazine. And we are lucky enough to have her standing right next to me right now. Hello, Jane.
Well, hello.
Nice to see you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and you got the book going and everything. Rent versus own.
Yeah. Got the book going. Got Airbnb people in my basement. I got a car I drove across the country.
Wow.
I've been taking care of business.
You have been taking care of business. I love it. And business being good, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Jane, your book is Rent versus Own, a real estate reality check for navigating booms, busts, and bad advice. And I mean, that's why we love having you. It's, kind of that you add so much to our show. Some of the things that you've talked about are actually the sustainability in buying a house, and not like a lot of people think where you're buying a green home, but maybe as sustainable as a consumer.
Right. And one of the things I talk about in the book is making a financially sustainable choice about your housing. So whether you're renting or owning, finding a monthly payment that you can live with. And I think a lot of first-time buyer education, for good reasons, but incomplete reasons, focuses on how do you get a loan and then how do you get into the home. And there are a lot of details to that. But I think a lot of people don't think about the new higher expenses that will accompany ownership once they've closed on the place. So that's what I'm talking about by talking about sustainable home ownership. And it's not sustainable in the sense of green. It's sustainable in the sense of I can continue to afford it after the fact. And it's a word that's come up a lot with the policy conversations about what's going to happen with Fannie and Freddie and all the geeky policy stuff that's going on. But it's something that people should learn to think about for themselves too.
There's a lot of that because people get to make a choice with how much they spend on a house.
Right.
I mean, and there's, like you said, there's this recommended amount and then there's kind of this maximum amount. But just because it's the maximum that maybe you're pre-approved for, it doesn't mean that's what you have to buy. Right.
And I also think one of the first stops that I recommend that people make when they're contemplating buying a home is to go talk to a mortgage broker or mortgage professional. And rather than start shopping with a realtor, no offense, Paul, but find out what your budget is and, how you're going to qualify for that budget and, what is a comfortable monthly payment and what would that look like when you're shopping for a place? What would your budget be? If you're making a big down or a little down or what kind of programs you can use. And you really need to understand how the mechanics of that work so that you understand the kind of loan you're likely going to get. And then you can go to your friendly realtor and say, hey, I'm looking for a home and I really need to keep it in this budget.
Another big piece, you look at going to a lender first, so that you're able to know what your budget is. But some people go online and they'll go to a mortgage calculator, which doesn't, it basically leaves out your taxes, your insurance, the potential for mortgage insurance.
Right.
And that's not what they think they can afford.
Right. And I think that's it's fine to go play with these numbers in a back of the napkin way. But one of the really unfortunate marketing things that you see with home listings, and this is often, on the mothership websites, is that you can have this home for, X or Y monthly payment. And then, there's all the fine print and like it assumes amazing credit and it assumes 20% down. And, 4 out of 5 first time buyers don't make a 20% down or unless mom and dad are doing it. So it assumes that it doesn't include HOA fees if it's a place with an HOA, and it doesn't include insurance or PMI. So, I mean, you could be like, $300 to $600, off. But it gets you, whets your appetite into thinking that I can have a home for what I'm renting one for. I can own a home for what I rent one for. And you start going down the path and then, maybe you're so emotionally attached to, this kind of place that you're buying a home you really can't afford in the end. So I think people need to understand how all these layers of expense and not to scare themselves off, but just to have a realistic idea when they see these figures.
Well, I don't think going to understand something shouldn't scare somebody off, right?
No,
should
right.
make them feel more comfortable with it.
Right.
You talk about 6 questions to actually ask yourself in order to maybe know if this is a financially viable decision. Let's get into those a little bit.
Well, all right. Thank you for pointing them out. I would say a lot of it has to do with your current financial situation and your potential future financial situation. If you know, for instance, that you're going to take an income hit, or you might go work half-time, you might have a kid and take a bunch of time off and it's unpaid or lower paid. You're going to go to grad school, you're self-employed, and, you're in a really volatile industry. The mortgage bill is going to be consistent. And if your income with which to pay it is not, or your life situation isn't, you really have to look at that. And, you have to know about that for rent too, but, not only with making the mortgage payment as an owner. Well, let me rephrase that. Not only will you be making the mortgage payment as an owner, but you'll be funding all the repairs, maintenance, all these issues that you also don't think about till after the fact. So that's a lot of it. I also think people need to think about kind of an exit strategy on their home. With more and more people getting into homes where, whether it's an individual or a couple, more people are self-employed. They don't have benefits. They don't qualify for unemployment if they lose income. That's an issue. Also, you can't just assume that you're going to sell in 3 or 4 years and make a profit. And especially, there's kind of the narrative that some first timers had in their heads in the heyday. Oh, I'll buy this place. I can move in 3 or 4 years. I'll leave with some money.
Make $100,000.
Yeah, I will make a low down payment, and then I'll get out of there and I'll have my profit. But it's sort of like, if you do that now, if you have a low down payment, you don't stay long, depending on the community you're in, and, when you bought, you're looking at possibly having to pay to move out. So you just need to be able to model, what if I just sell in 1 year or 3? Go to an amortization calculator and play with numbers and just make sure you understand where you would be.
You talk about an exit strategy, but I mean, really, that needs to be part of your entrance strategy, because it's a true commitment. I mean, it's a big commitment.
Right. One thing that I don't know if I'm the first person to say it, but other people have said it.
If other people have said it, you're not the first person to say it.
Well, no, I can't remember at this point, but I think owning a home is kind of like operating a business, and you have to make financial decisions constantly. Do we remodel because it'll up the value, or do we do a modest thing now and a bigger thing later? Where do we do we refinance and pay those fees? But what if we move in a few years? So you're constantly making these big financial decisions just because you're a homeowner, and so I think you have to actually understand your total financial position and what, how owning a home impacts that. Are you still saving and investing for retirement? Is everything going into the house? Are you kind of letting the runaway train go in that direction? So anyway, I ramble on, but you get what I'm saying.
Oh, I do. I mean, it's very true. I mean, you have these business decisions to make when you own a house. We are here with Jande Hodges, author, and in many publications you've heard of. And I want to just, what about that expectation? I mean, are people willing to make a gain or lose? I mean, because nowadays, with the title of your book, Navigating the Booms, Busts, and Bad Advice, which happens, I mean, that's something that people really have to think about is, well, what can I afford to lose? Because in a bust,
right, you can
you're
lose
in
money.
trouble.
And well, I mean, in prior times, a home was sort of spoken of as a quote unquote forced savings plan, meaning the benefit that you got from a home was sort of like savings. It was a modest benefit. Plus, you got to live there if you stay long enough. If you are gaining equity because you stay over time, and then typically the market goes up. So obviously, the longer you stay, the better that is. You exit with maybe the equivalent of a year or two of household income, and that's a big chunk. But you're not. It's not like an investment. So people in recent years started to think of their homes as an investment, and they say that they don't do that anymore. But then you look at their expectations for future profit off of not staying very long, and it becomes apparent that they can't do math, and they still think it's an investment.
Well, we talk to people all the time, and a lot of the real estate agents, and people get so caught up with this deal, and I'm thinking, well, if it's not an investment, what are you so worried about the deal for?
Right.
You know, is it the right house, but you want the deal. So it's kind of a strange balance between the perfect house for your life.
Right.
And, well, I don't know if I can get a good deal. So it's a lot of factors in play.
Right. Yeah. I think, you know, people are kind of warming up to the fact that it's not really an investment. But one of the other things that happens, I talk to financial advisors a lot for stories, and they always say people come to us after they're homeowners and they don't realize that they've maybe bought more home than would be wise, because now their leftover disposable income that can go into retirement and emergency fund, well, it's all going to housing. So we're not going to go tell them to sell their house, but we wish they might have talked to us first.
Sure. Before they even go to the mortgage broker.
Well, possibly. And, you know, some of these folks are extremely conservative on what one should spend on housing and you know, but, it's worth looking at that point of view, because if you are putting everything into your housing payment and, you don't have other assets, and it's a problem. But if you have those other assets and you really like the home you're in, and for whatever reason it's a particular kind of community where prices just, you know, don't go up precipitously, and you exit with a little bit of a loss, well, who cares? You've got other savings.
And you've gotten to live in the house that you love.
At the house that you love, in the school district, or in the, you know, with the pool or whatever.
With the pool, which was really good for the last 2 months. Maybe not so good here for the next 10. Jane, thanks for joining us. Stick around just for a few minutes. Paul Cantu, Ryan Leopold, and our producer, Heather Moore, are going to join us on the mics in just a minute to talk a little bit more about what's going on out there in the real estate industry. We'll be back.